CBS.
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. Call it the billion-dollar bailout. That's the cost of a record federal payment today to depositors of two failed savings institutions in California. Billions more may be needed to handle problems in this industry critics charge is riddled with incompetence and worse, and your tax dollars could be involved. Our coverage of this still developing economic story begins with Jerry Bowen.
It's a record $1,350 million payout by the Federal Home Loan Bank Board. That's the price of not doing business for two Southern California savings and loans.
This is the largest cash payout in history, and in fact it is 6 times larger than anything the FSLIC has ever done before.
Thousands of angry and nervous depositors were quick to flood the phone lines at American Diversified Savings and North America Savings, anxious to learn how they can get their money back.
If this account is just held by you, all you have to fill out is the claim form.
Investigators from the FSLIC, the Federal Savings and Loan Insurance Corporation, set up shop in a nearby hotel this morning, poring over records from the two institutions. Accounts up to $100,000 are fully insured, which covers 98% of the depositors. American Diversified, with liabilities of more than $1.1 billion, and North America, with over $215 million in debts, lured depositors with the promise of high interest rates, usually 1% or more above the competition. To pay their depositors, regulators charge the S&Ls sought illegal or high-risk investments.
You had investments in things like windmill farms, ethanol plants, very high-risk sorts of lending practices.
Healthy institutions have been affected too, forced to pay higher rates to compete for depositors. Analysts say the trouble began with deregulation.
Institutions were allowed to get into unusual investment areas that they were just ill-equipped to examine properly.
Federal regulators say the two savings and loans were in such bad shape that a bailout was not an option. There weren't enough assets to interest another institution, a white knight to take them over. The only choice was to shut them down. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
The government will be mailing out thousands of these checks to California depositors tomorrow. But so many other thrifts are in bad shape, it will cost many billions of dollars to bail them out.
This is like a cancer that has just kept on spreading and spreading and spreading, and the total bill has just continued to rise and rise and rise.
Since 1980, the number of savings and loans going insolvent has been soaring to record heights, with more expected, especially in the oil states. To help out the S&Ls, the government a few years ago liberalized the rules on lending, but
the interaction of all these policies effectively created a greenhouse effect in which incompetency and bad management and fraud and all kinds of criminal activity could flourish in a way it could not otherwise.
Some thrifts lent money recklessly. This was to have been a shopping center. The Florida thrift that lent money on it went bust. In others, like Vernon Savings and Loan in Texas, fraud charges have been filed. Critics blame government regulators for many S&L problems.
The Federal Home Loan Bank Board has done a dismal job for a long time. If they were in the air traffic control business, 1 out of every 6 aircraft would go down in a mid-air collision.
We have more personnel out in the field, they are better paid, they are higher quality, and they are enforcing a tougher set of regulations.
In hearings last month, Congress got a gloomy report. There's not enough in the insurance fund to cover expected losses. $30 to $64 billion more might be needed. Bailout money that many believe will come from the American taxpayer. Dan?
Thanks, Ray. With the long presidential primary season finally about to end, Vice President Bush spent the day hunting for votes in California and looking beyond to the fall campaign. Among the problems facing Bush, increasing questions about his knowledge of alleged drug dealing by Panama's General Noriega. Bush insists that he first found out for sure only after Noriega was actually indicted for drug running fairly recently, that he didn't put much stock in earlier reports about Noriega. But it turns out others high up in the White House certainly did. Democrats say that Bush is simply not credible on this issue. Richard Schlesinger has been investigating.
If Vice President George Bush considered the evidence against General Noriega rumor and innuendo, he wasn't listening to ranking members of the administration. As early as 1985, several White House aides were convinced that the stories of Noriega's drug dealing were true.
In 1985, there was no doubt in my mind that Noriega was involved in drug trafficking, drug smuggling, etc.
In 1985, Dr. Carlton Turner, then the administration's drug policy advisor, wrote a memo that was circulated in the White House concluding that the Panamanian strongman was involved in drugs. Turner says the State Department, the CIA, and the Drug Enforcement Administration fought his conclusion because at the time Noriega was, in Turner's words, throwing them bones, giving them information at the same time he was trafficking in drugs.
I mean, why make waves when the ship is sailing on a smooth ocean? From their view.
And from your view?
There was a torpedo headed our way. And the torpedo hit.
After Turner wrote his memo, Admiral John Poindexter, then the National Security Advisor, visited Noriega, warned him of the evidence against him, and told him to stop dealing in drugs. There is no evidence Noriega heeded the warning.
Turner's memo was not the only warning. In November of 1985, a memo from the Defense Department's Southern Command concluded in part, the leadership of the Panama Defense Forces is involved in illegal activities, for example, drugs. In 1986, after newspaper articles appeared detailing the charges against Noriega, American intelligence agencies reportedly concluded that the allegations were true. State Department officials met to review U.S. policy toward Panama and Noriega in light of the drug charges.
Our policy did not change after the policy review in 1986. The decision essentially was to set the problem aside, really to leave it on the shelf, in the words of one of the participants, until we can take care of the Nicaragua problem.
The Nicaragua problem, according to McNeil, was the U.S. effort to topple the Marxist Sandinista regime. Noriega was helping the U.S. in Nicaragua, and that, according to McNeil, shielded him from pressure.
The Nicaraguan obsession overwhelmed our much larger national security interest in narcotics. That's very clear.
George Bush, who was the point man in the administration's war on drugs, says he knew nothing concrete about Noriega until the general was indicted last February.
From 1985 on, there were various people in the administration and various agencies who expressed concerns about possible drug dealings involving General Noriega and urged a change in U.S. policy. Were you aware of those warnings, and did you think at the time that there ought to be some change in U.S. policy toward Mr. Noriega?
No. When Mr. Noriega was found to be involved, provably involved, in narcotics, he was indicted by the Reagan-Bush administration, and he ought to be brought to justice and pay the price for polluting the lives of a lot of young people in this country.
There were people in the White House who tried to get Bush's attention. Constantine Menges was the National Security Council's expert on Latin America. He says in 1985, while he was in the White House, he tried repeatedly to get someone to pay attention to what he considered clear and overwhelming evidence of Noriega's involvement with drug traffickers. He failed.
I did try to get the issue to the Vice President's attention also.
How come that didn't work? I mean,
I don't know.
Did he not want to hear about this, or?
I don't know. I did my best.
He wouldn't see you?
I did my best.
Until he was finally indicted early this year, the administration continued doing business with Noriega despite all the evidence. Evidence characterized by one former official as not just a smoking gun, but rather a 21-cannon barrage. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Washington.
Fueled by a Republican campaign offensive, more questions today about the judgment and ethics of House Speaker Jim Wright of Texas. CBS News correspondent Deborah Potter reports on the accusations that Wright's book, Reflections of a Public Man, got into print at least partly at public expense for private profit.
Calls for an investigation of Speaker Jim Wright intensified today with the revelation that this book was edited in part by a congressional staffer being paid for official business. Matthew Casalato also went to Texas at taxpayer expense to supervise the book's publication. The House Ethics Committee already is looking into complaints that Wright made inflated royalties from the book in a sweetheart deal with the publisher Carlos Moore. Moore got more than $250,000 in other business from Wright's campaign committees. In addition, reports that Wright misused his influence to help troubled Texas savings and loans led more than 70 Republicans last week to urge a full investigation.
There, will be this continuing cloud that hangs over the institution and over the speaker and over our ability to get along and to work together. And so I felt like that really it was the best interest of all concerned.
The complaints come as the speaker prepares to chair the party convention next month. And Democrats say it's all politics designed to counter questions about Reagan administration ethics.
That concern, I think, is leading them to sort of desperately search around for some Democratic target to try to attack, and I think they've settled on the speaker.
Wright had no comment on today's disclosure, but he has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing and agreed to cooperate fully with any investigation. A decision on whether to launch a preliminary inquiry could come this week, and even some of Wright's supporters say they now expect there will be an investigation, if only to avoid the appearance of a whitewash that could be political dynamite. Deborah Potter, CBS News on Capitol Hill.
The U.S. Senate voted final approval today for next year's federal budget, total spending $1.1 trillion. Expected deficit, $135 billion. This package contains no new taxes beyond $14 billion approved last December. And still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, Bob Simon on the Palestinian uprising. After 6 months, some new tactics. And Richard Roth on ferrets as pets. Cute, but are they dangerous?
I was practicing my hook shot when she walked in.
Looks like we're working together.
Brains, talent, she had everything.
This story's hot.
Including bad breath.
Something wrong?
I moved to the right, the left. There was no escape.
Excuse me.
Somebody like her.
How could I forget Scoop? Bad breath germs, goodbye. Wow, I'll show him.
Oh no, not again.
Hi.
Her breath.
I figured it out.
Right. For a positive reaction, the power of Scope. Now that we cleared the air, we could finally get down to business.
The finer things, happily some are affordable, like Grey Poupon Dijon mustard. So fine, it's even made with white wine.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
But of course.
Grey Poupon, one of life's finer pleasures.
Shh, listen to your mouth. That's the crunchy texture of a Triscuit. And that's the delicious whole wheat taste of a Triscuit. They're made to take on any topping or no topping. Listen to your mouth, Triscuit.
Professor.
Yes, Val?
You've got dirty dentures.
I just soaked them.
Soaking's not enough. Brushing with Denture Cream Denture toothpaste cleans almost twice as clean.
A significant advantage.
Brush with Denture Cream or Denture Gel.
Captain, this itchy rash is driving me crazy.
Why didn't you use the Cord-Aid?
Cord-Aid goes beneath the skin to actually heal itches and rashes.
You know, itches and rashes won't last if you use Cord-Aid first.
President Reagan was again selling the election year Moscow summit today. Beyond talking up what he calls progress on arms control and human rights, Mr. Reagan stressed the personal in a Washington speech, calling his trip to Moscow, and I quote now, one of the highest privileges of my life. Secretary of State Schultz spent the last full day of his latest fruitless Mideast peace mission talking with Syria's President Assad. President Reagan's spokesman said Schultz is not about to give up, but he added that prospects for peace, quote, are the same as they've been for the last 2,000 years. Israel today reopened high schools in the occupied West Bank and Gaza that had been closed since February. A spokesman said it's a sign that life is returning to normal. But as correspondent Bob Simon reports, the Arab uprising may have been put down, but things may never be the same.
A boy with a rock, the sound of a mosque, the uprising sputters on. But these days, a small bunch of kids will bring on a battalion. The Israelis are snuffing out every remnant of rebellion with a blanket of force. 6 months after the uprising began, more than 200 Palestinians are dead, 5,000 wounded, 10,000 arrested.
Are they 1 inch closer to a Palestinian state than they were 6 months ago?
Just the opposite. They are further away from it. They are further away from it in all respects.
Jabalia, the Gaza refugee camp where it all began, is an even sadder place today than it was 6 months ago, if that is possible. There are more soldiers here now, many more soldiers. They have, as the Americans used to say in Vietnam, pacified the area. There are very few riots now, and very few young men. Most of them, the makers of the uprising, are in Israeli jails. Radwan Abu Ayesh, a Palestinian journalist, was just released. He was held for 6 months under administrative detention. No charges, no trial. He observed the uprising, the Intifada, from behind the wire. Do you think that the Intifada has accomplished anything?
Yes, of course. I believe that it stirred the whole world.
They thought that throwing rocks is enough. But now what they'll find out, that if they really want to resist the occupation, they'll have to create their own power base.
That's what Palestinians are beginning to do on the West Bank and Gaza, build their own rudimentary institutions, kindergartens for the children of prisoners, health clinics. Many are growing their own food wherever they can, vegetables in the backyard, chickens in the garage. Anything to decrease their dependence on the Israelis. Villages give courses in first aid to their frontline troops, how to treat a gunshot wound, and run their own nighttime security patrols, early warning systems.
We know that we can't push the Israeli outside the occupied territories by stones, but we at least let them know that they can't control us as they want.
Israeli attempts to control the Palestinians with brute force created international outrage for a while, but that has passed. The outrage, not the brutality. These men say they were buried under these boulders during a recent search and arrest operation. It did not attract much attention.
I think we faced it down. I think we've dealt with the problem, and in some ways I'd say you could almost say it's behind us.
Both sides left a few illusions behind during the last 6 months. The Israelis had believed that Palestinians had grown accustomed to the face of the occupation and would tolerate it indefinitely. Palestinians believed that defiance and headlines and airtime would chase the Israelis away. Once again in the Middle East, everyone was wrong. Bob Simon, CBS News, Gaza.
The beginning of a planned 3-day strike in South Africa saw at least 2 million black workers and students stay home today. They're protesting the white minority government's crackdown on anti-apartheid groups.
If you thought you had to give up comfort to get a close shave, Norelco says, think again. Their revolutionary shaving system shaves skin close in a way that's incredibly comfortable. As the hair enters the chamber, the patented lift and cut system lifts each hair and holds it a split second before a blade cuts it. So it's possible to shave skin close without the blades even touching the skin. Norelco Rotatract. We made close comfortable.
It's Lobster Fest time at Red Lobster. We know what you love the most. At our Lobster Fest, we do lobster best. No one else even comes close.
From $8.95, kids just 99 cents.
Have a tempting lobster trio, Mornay, if you're in the mood. La, la, la. Our tails are the best at our Lobster Fest. We know how you love seafood.
Now Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, lobster and shrimp trio, just $11.95.
On their vacation, they had everything planned. Everything except this.
So don't carry cash. Carry American Express traveler's checks. Don't leave home without them.
In addition to my hitch in the Navy, another one of the best things that ever happened was winning $10 million from American Family Publishers, right? You bet. Now, I urge you to enter the sweepstakes with my picture by June 30th.
Jesse Jackson today picked up his first vote by a U.S. Senator for the Democratic Party's nominating convention in Atlanta this summer, Senator Ernest Hollings from Jackson's home state of South Carolina. This comes as Jackson is planning to keep on campaigning past the primaries and keep prodding likely nominee Michael Dukakis. Today, he pressed Dukakis to take a stronger stand on South Africa. Correspondent Bill Whitaker reports on Dukakis' problem trying to keep peace with Jackson while trying to fend off George Bush's portrayal of Dukakis as a Jackson-style liberal.
One day before the close of the primary season, Democratic frontrunner Michael Dukakis took aim not at Jesse Jackson, but at Republican George Bush. He attacked the vice president for changing his position on a crucial environmental issue. This weekend, Bush backed away from his support of offshore oil drilling.
I'm pleased he's coming around, but it's kind of late. I've made my position crystal clear, and I just didn't come to this position yesterday.
By all accounts, Dukakis will have the nomination wrapped up after tomorrow. He now faces a more difficult task, uniting his often unruly party. His first problem, Jesse Jackson. Jackson has mobilized the party's left. He says he's earned a say on everything, including the choice of vice president.
You struggle too long and too hard to expect blacks, Hispanics, and women support white males only, with no reciprocal support.
Dukakis' dilemma? How to satisfy and inspire Jackson's constituents without appearing to cave into special interests. The sin of Walter Mondale. The two men are engaged in an intricate minuet, Jackson maneuvering to inject his concerns into the party platform, like declaring South Africa a terrorist state.
Of course, if it will not win on that matter, we'll simply meet each other on the floor in Atlanta.
I'm going to do everything I can to unite this party, to go to Atlanta with unity, with strength.
The tightrope he's got to walk is to bring the groups into the campaign, have a unified Democratic Party without being pushed out of the center of the political spectrum.
Republicans are licking their chops over Dukakis' problems on the left.
It's going to be easy, I think, for the Bush campaign and the candidate Bush to paint Dukakis as more of an orthodox liberal.
Republicans will paint Dukakis a spendthrift liberal with no foreign policy experience who opposes the death penalty.
I think it'll get rough, and I think it may be one of the dirtiest campaigns in recent history.
But first, Dukakis will have to choose a running mate. Speculation centers on Senators Bill Bradley of New Jersey and John Glenn of Ohio. Both would bring foreign policy experience to the ticket. Dukakis is riding high now, but some observers sense overconfidence, even arrogance within the campaign as it enters a delicate period. That could prove to be Dukakis' biggest problem. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Los Angeles.
There were wreath-laying ceremonies in Arlington National Cemetery at the grave of Robert Kennedy. The annual memorial services tonight open to the public for the first time. Robert Kennedy was assassinated 20 years ago, just after he won the Democratic presidential primary in California. Robert Kennedy is buried near his assassinated brother, President John Kennedy.
Around here, breakfast time is like the playoffs. My goal is getting him to eat right. His game plan's a little different. So I give him Wheaties. It's full of good nutrition, not sugar. He's sweet enough.
Wheaties, 100% whole wheat, naturally low in sugar. That's champion nutrition for the whole family.
Victory.
Why do you take aspirin more than once a week?
Because my doctor told me to take one every day. You see, a few years ago, I had a heart attack. So I'm on a regimen of exercise, a healthy diet, and a tri-buffered bufferin every day.
If you've had a heart attack, ask your doctor about new tri-buffered bufferin. It's 100% aspirin, plus 3 buffers that help protect against stomach upset plain aspirin can cause.
Bufferin's a part of my life now.
New tri-buffered bufferin. Ask your doctor about it.
We know what your home is really worth. When it comes time to buy or sell, no one knows more or cares more about the American home than Better Homes and Gardens.
When I tell someone the MCI card is better than AT&T's, they look at me funny. So I tell them our card saves them up to 25%. Then they look angry. But not with me.
Until you call, you'll never know how much better a long-distance company can be.
2 California men today claimed the North American Record Lottery Prize, more than $51 million. 53-year-old Shelby Carroll, an aircraft mechanic at Travis Air Force Base, and Randy Pennington, a 26-year-old supermarket clerk from Carmichael, each won more than $1 million a year for 20 years after taxes. Both California tickets had numbers that were picked automatically by the lottery's computer terminal. Well, we try to keep you up to date on trends, so there may be significance in this figure. An estimated 50,000 ferrets are sold in pet stores every year. And suddenly there seems to be another division of mankind, ferret people and non-ferret people. Which are you? Richard Roth helps you decide.
Here, Fido, meet your competition for the hearts and homes of America's pet lovers. Meet the ferret, a cousin of the skunk and weasel. It's become the nation's newest fad house pet, inspiring a love affair between man and beast and a brand new controversy.
They're clean, they're quiet, they're intelligent, and they're loving. What more could one ask for?
They tend to bite, they tend to escape, there's a rabies problem. When they escape, there can be a problem for livestock. I mean, you have all these problems.
With sales at $50,000 a year and estimates as many as 5 million are already being kept in American homes, ferrets have scurried to the center of an angry dispute. On one side, the animal establishment.
The Humane Society of the United States feels that ferrets should be outlawed. It should be illegal to own ferrets.
On the other side, ferret fanciers.
I love ferrets, okay? They're my buddies. I'm their spokesman. If we don't do our jobs as ferret owners, they could conceivably become illegal on a national level.
The latest salvo in the ferret feud was fired by 2 doctors writing in a medical journal, warning the animals are too wild and unpredictable to be considered good house pets. Ferret lovers, a determined breed that's supporting an industry of specialized products for their pint-sized passions, have gone on the offensive, forming clubs, producing a pro-ferret video, and marshaling every argument they can against ferret phobia.
They're very mischievous. They'll get into your closet and steal the shoes right out of the closet.
You two got me into this, now get me out.
No ferret has become as big a star as, say, Lassie, but Hollywood has not stood on the sidelines of this dispute.
Hey, buddy.
Oh, Jesus!
Unfortunately for his friends, not every ferret gets cast as a hero.
Not at me!
How far the fur will fly is anyone's guess, though some trend spotters say it doesn't matter. The ferret's about to discover fame is fickle. And the next hot pet? Well, have you ever cuddled a chinchilla? Richard Roth, CBS News, New York.
No, and I don't want to talk about it. That's the CBS Evening News. Dan, rather. See you tomorrow. Good night.
In 10 seconds, Diane Miller is going to experience pain. Her body's not the same as it was when she was younger. Even a simple move can trigger it. That's why her next move is to Metaprin. Metaprin has the same medicine as Motrin, and nothing's proven faster for relief of body pain or any kind of pain. It's also gentler to your stomach than aspirin. Metaprin works fast when you haven't got time for the pain.
Morning, ladies.
Morning.
Like to see how your cereals stack up to Total?
Lovely idea.
To get the vitamins in one bowl of Total, it takes almost 3 bowls of Special K.
Pass the old brand, Gloria.
Takes 4 bowls of that.
That's why I like shredded wheat.
Then you'll have to eat 12 bowls.
You better loosen your girdle, Margaret.
Total has 100% of 9 vitamins and iron and is rich in calcium.
I've always preferred Total.
Total, a stack of nutrition in just 1 bowl.
What's the best kind of fruit? The kind that's fresh, moist, and plump. That's why Sunsweet are my favorite kind of pitted prunes. Moist, plump, and fresh. Sunsweet, because the best prunes are fresh prunes.
The Remington microscreen shaves as close as a blade, or your money back. The first screen shaves incredibly close. The second even closer. Shaves as close as a blade, or your money back. Now, lowest price ever on Remington microscreen rechargeable.
I'm Harry Smith. Tomorrow, adopting babies with Down syndrome and forgotten Black war heroes tomorrow on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
Coming up next on Eyewitness News, the drought leaves some communities nearly high and dry and cattle farmers down and out.
Also tonight, Police Chief Joe Casey backs a national gun control effort. And the fans swarm to Nashville for what else but fanfare.
Join us for all these stories and a lot more coming up next.
Does your makeup make you feel like Cinderella with time running out? While it streaks, shines, or fades away? You need Corn Silk to absorb the excess facial oils that cause lesser makeups to break down. Corn Silk.